Namaha Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaha Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Vedanta Namaste Saraswate Gauravani Charine Devi Sesa Suryavadi Rakadeshatarine Namaste Saraswati Gauravani Charine Devi Sesa Suryavadi Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma Padauhi Kavada Arana Korea Manera Prasade Puri Sarvaya Radhe Prasade Puri Sarvaya Yakudam Hilake Jame Jame Paruse Yakudam Hilake Jame Jame Paruse Divyan De Prakashito Divyan De Prakashito Sri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janar Bandhu Sri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janar Bandhu Nath Kere Jirvana Prabhu Koro Jaya Jaya Vare Pada Jaya Sujuti Bhuvana Sujuti Bhuvana Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Kadada Divasa Didora Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Radha Divasa Didora Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Vishnu Bhagavan Sapri Rajakacharya. Stotra Satsi Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Chaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai, Vrindavan ki jai, Mayapur ki jai, Jagannath Swami ki jai, Ganga Mai ki jai, Yamuna Mai ki jai, Tulsi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Suhaita Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories of His Son. Gaur Premanandi. We broadcast the years. Oh, I just don't see it.
They don't see the screen.
Oh. 。 . 。 。
Oh.
。 。 。 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 。 . 。 。 . 。 。 . 。 。 . 。 。 . 。 。 . 。 。 . 。 。 . 。 。 . 。 。 。 。 。 . 。 。
They don't see the screen.
Namaste Narasingaya.
Namaste Narasingaya.
Aralada Daine. Kasi Purachara. Hatam Kalakara. Tona Singa Paratona Singa. Kavya Vita Tona Singa. Hena Singa Hena Singa. Sengamadin Sharanam Prabhaje. Avakara Kamalavare Natam Aduta Singam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanukingam Keshavajata Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Kesava Krishna Nari Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare. Well, another fine day for Bhakti Yoga. Monsieur Lecomte. Oh, Elena is traveling today, so I think we should all wish her a very happy, safe trip. Thanks for coming. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jasodanandana Rajadanandana Jagannathira Anacharya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Janavallabha Girivaradhari Sadanandana Janasandana Jagannathira Anacharya Madhava Kunja Vihari Madhava Kunja Vihari. Welcome back. Nice to have you back. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So, Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and purports by Srila Prabhupada. Today we're on 7-139. So we have actually we have 1, 2, 3, 4 more verses of purports. So we'll first chant it once, and then I'll explain a bit what the words mean. We'll chant it together. Evam Shabdao Swabhavanat Patantau Tau Kripalubi Proktau Punarjanma Virvam Shivirlokaya Kalpatam. So all the words ending in AU, as Shaptau and so on, are in the dual form. So it's talking about the two persons, Jai and Vijay. So Evam thus Shaptau, cursed, Swabhavanat, from their home in Vaikuntha, their abode. Patantau, falling, Tau, those two, Kripalu be by the merciful ones who just cursed them. So they were cursed, but this is sort of a typical thing that first someone curses you and they say, well, but I'll give you a break. So just like Narada Muni cursed Nalakuvara and Manigriva to take birth as trees, but Krishna will save you. So this is sort of a normal thing where someone curses you, but the curse, the punishment is meant to be reformatory. It's meant to make you a better person. So here, they're falling, but then these merciful people, they were proktau, they were addressed by the merciful ones who said, Punar Janma Vir, again, and then Tri Vir goes with Janma Vir. After 3 births, or by 3 births, Vam of you two, Lokaya Kalpatam, let it be possible. Kalpa means like to arrange, to facilitate. So let it be arranged for your loka. In other words, you can come back. This is sort of, it means back to your spiritual position. In other words, let it be arranged for your, it's understood, return to the spiritual world, Vaikuntha Loka, that you left. So it's a curse, and then a blessing that turns the curse into something beneficial. So we'll chant that. Evam Shaptau Sabhavanat Patantau Tau Kripalubi Proktau Punar Janma Virvam Tribhir Lokaya Kalpatam Evam Shaptau Sabhavanat Patantau Tau Kripalubi Proktau Punar Janma Virvam Tribhir Lokaya Kalpatam. So
Evam Shapto Svabhavanat.
Evam Shapta Savana.
Vasanto Tau Kripalubi. Rakto Punar Janma Virvam. Sri Lokaya Kalpatam.
Vam Shakto Svabhavanat.
Evam Shapta Savana.
Tantau Tau Kripa Lubhi. Ruktau Punarjanma Bhirvam.
Ruptau Punarjanma Virvam.
Nirlokaya Kalpata.
Evam Shakta Swabhavanat.
Evam Shapta Savana. Tantau Kripaluvi. Ruptau Punarjanma Virvam.
Kai Kalpatam.
Lokaya Kalpatam. So, translation, while Jaya and Vijaya, thus cursed by the sages, Evam Shaptau, were falling, Patanto, were falling to the material world, they were addressed as follows by the same sages who were very kind to them. O doorkeepers, after 3 births, you will be able to return to your positions in Vaikuntha, for then the duration of the curse will have ended. And then I'll just read, maybe you could put the next verse 40. Let's read the Sanskrit quickly. Jagyate. Jagyate is the dual form of the perfect past tense, which I know will make your day. So Jagyate Tau Dite Putrao. So those 2 sons, again, this is all dual. The 2 sons of Diti, those 2 sons of Diti took birth, Daitya Danava Vanditao, being honored or worshipped by the Daityas and Danavas. Hiranyakashipu Jesus, the older one, the older brother, became Hiranyakashipu, gold cushion, which was later stolen by the Karmis and made a movie, Goldfinger. This is gold cushion. And then everything comes from Vedic culture. So Hiranyaksho Nujastataha. And then gold eye. That's what it means. Hiranyaksha. So gold cushion and gold eye. I guess he had his eye on the gold. Anujas. That's how you say younger brother. Anujas. It means born after. Jas, born anu after. So born after. Common. Just like, for example, Indranuja. Boris devotees say Indranuja. Indranuja means younger son of Indra, who was Vamana. Vamana took birth as the younger brother of Indra. And Ramanuja, of course, is Lakshmana, the younger brother of Rama. Rama Anuja. So, Anujastataha. And then the next one, go to 41.
Translation.
Oh, okay. I forgot. So these 2 associates of the Lord, Jai and Vijay, later descended to the material world, taking birth as the 2 sons of Diti. Hiranyakashipu being the elder and Hiranyaksha was the younger. They were very much respected by the Daityas and Danavas, demoniac species. Hato Hiranyakashipur, Harina Singha Rupina. So that's Hiranyakashipu. Hato was killed, Harina, by Hari, Singha Rupina, who bore a lion form. Hiranyaksho, Dharodhare Vibrat Shokarambapu. So Hiranyaksha, Dharodhare, to lift the, so here it's understood was killed in the lifting of the world, Vibrata, Shokaram, by the Lord who is Bibrata. Bibrata means by the one who is bearing. This comes from the Sanskrit root para, from which we get the English word to bear, like to hold something. It's a very old Indo-European root. So Bibrata, by the Lord who is bearing the boar form, Shokaram, from Shukara. So, translation, appearing as Nrsingadev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Hari, killed Hiranyakashipu when the Lord delivered the planet Earth, which had fallen in the Garbhodaka ocean. Hiranyaksha tried to hinder him, and then the Lord, as Varaha, killed Hiranyaksha. It's interesting, there's sort of a play on words here. I mean, Sanskrit has there's in the Bhagavatam, innumerable literary devices. But here, if you look at the word dharodhare, and the end of the third line, so dhara means to hold, to bear. And that's probably related to the word dharma, that which sustains sort of principles of civilization. And also words like Giridhara, Giridhari, Krishna who holds, who bears the mountain, Giridhari. So that's this root, Tara, to hold or to bear. Krishna is also called Gadadhara, or more precisely in the West, Gadadhar. But Gada actually means a club. So it's Gadadhara, holding the club, or Padmadhara, holding the lotus, or Chakradhara, holding the chakra. And so here, Krishna, the earth itself, which holds all of us, so the earth is called Dhara, feminine, the earth that holds all of us. Also, because all of our resources are on the earth is also called Vasundhara, or Vasudhara, which means holding all the resources. So it's a very common root. And it's Dhara Udhare. So in other words, the earth, which holds everything, but then Krishna held up, Udhara, Krishna held up the holder. So that's sort of the poetic play on words here. Krishna held up the holder, or sustained the sustainer. So, with his, who would guess that? Talk about faking out all the theologians. Who would ever guess Krishna's going to come as a boar? Because, you think about it, because in this world there's all this majestic worship, and no one has ever seen God because he's too holy. You can never even see God. It's like you mean, they really get into this. So here, not only is Krishna visible, he's coming as a hog, faked out basically every theologian.
Except the Islamic ones.
Oh, I did them.
Anyway, so Krishna, he's not just a person. To be a person or Purushottam is not merely a theological category. He's the Purusha Uttama, the ultimate person, or Uttama Purusha. He's also, because when people say, oh, the Supreme, they think in terms of power, like God can beat up everyone else, or God is all powerful, or God is all knowing. They think, and of course that's relevant, that to be the Supreme Person means that you have infinite power, infinite knowledge, or infinite love and all that. But Krishna is not merely a product of theology. He's really a person. And so I think it's only in the Vaishnav theology that this fact that God is a person is taken very, very seriously. For example, consider the Avatara theology, the fact that Krishna appears in all these different forms. And of course, the most famous song about this is Jaya Jagadisha Hare, which talks about the Dasha avatar, 10 of the main avatars, but certainly Not all of them. It's not even most of them. In fact, the Bhagavatam in the first canto says that avatara asankyeya hari, that Hari's avatars are innumerable, literally innumerable, asankyeya. And that it's like endless streams coming from an inexhaustible source, endless waves coming from an inexhaustible river. And so what's interesting is that there's nothing at all like this anywhere else in any theology in the world. What's interesting is, like they say, keeping up with the Joneses. So if you look at the Shaiva tradition, it was always kind of like keeping up with the Dasas, keeping up with the Vaishnavas. So so you have these very famous and super popular avatars of Krishna. I mean, this is the original Marvel universe, before Marvel. And so on the Shiva side, they always like had to compete. So they tried to come up with Shiva avatars, but they just didn't make it. Like it's it's like the what is it called, the Edsel car? It just didn't make it. Never sold. Why? Because it was made up. It wasn't real. Whereas in the case, Shiva is of course a great divine being, but he's always Shiva. Like whenever Shiva appears, it's Shiva. But Krishna can appear in innumerable forms, and that's only Krishna. You don't find that in any other. It's not at the center of any other theology. And so Krishna really is the supreme personality, as Prabhupada says. And he has these infinite qualities, which include laughing at us. And so again, I mean, it's like in football, you do a fake and everyone like falls the other way and the runner goes that way. I remember when I was a kid from the LA Lakers, they had this very famous announcer, Chick Hearn. He was a famous basketball announcer, and one of his like standard lines was because back in those days at basketball games, they had these sort of vendors. They would go around these little like carts, where they sold hot popcorn. So he'd always say, "Faked him into the popcorn machine." Like he faked him so bad the guy, fell into the popcorn machine. And so talk about faking someone into the popcorn machine. And here's God, the Holy of Holies, the unspeakably holy, coming as a boar. And because boars dig in the ground, he just lifts the earth up. I mean, it's hilarious. And if you think about it, I mean, imagine you're just like, I don't know, taking a walk one evening, and suddenly you see these gigantic figures, because Varro's like really big. And here in Yaksha had this very big form. And you see up in the sky these two figures of cosmic dimension, like having this battle up in the sky. What's that noise? The what? Oh, it's this. What's the name? So, I mean, think about it. Just seeing this up in the sky above your planet, these two, the battle of the Kalpa. And then Krishna comes as a fish. So talk about the supreme personality of surfer. Because, I mean, when Krishna wants to go catch some waves, like body surfing, he rides the waves of cosmic destruction. I mean, here you have these waves so big they can actually wash planets away, and there's Lord Fish. I mean, it's amazing. No one could have predicted this. So he's the supreme personality of body surfer. He's riding the waves of annihilation. These huge waves that are flooding the universe. And then, of course, outsmarting Prahlad coming as, outsmarting Hiranyakashipu coming as Nrsimha. So, and Prabhupada always gave this example. are always made the theological point that don't try to outsmart God, he'll outsmart you. So Hiranyakashipu really tried to beat the system because first he asked Lord Brahma for a blessing and he wanted to be immortal. And as Prabhupada said, Brahma told him, well, sorry, even I'm not immortal. I can't give you what I haven't got. So he thought, okay. Prabhupada said he tried by a roundabout method. That's what Prabhupada said. So he thought he could beat the system. Basically, that's what everyone is doing in the material world. They're trying to beat the system. Because the system is that Krishna made everything, and we're all part of Krishna. And therefore, Krishna says, Bhoktarang Yagyata Pasam. When you understand me to be the enjoyer of all sacrifice and austerity, and this doesn't just refer to Hindu rituals, because everyone is making some sacrifice, whether it's working hard to maintain a family, whether it's working hard for any higher cause. Because yajna, the sort of the universal sense of yajna or sacrifice is that one tries to serve something higher than oneself. And then tapas literally means heat. And so basically, whether people perform austerities, it is an austerity to maintain a family. It's an austerity to hold a job. It's an austerity to, fight for some political cause, or imagine the austerities of military service, which can be just unimaginable, or the austerity of getting a higher degree, or the austerity of trying to get in shape physically. And so austerity is not simply something that, yogis did in India. Austerity is what everyone on earth does if they're not absolutely in the mode of ignorance. And if someone is not just, lying on a dirty couch somewhere out of their head, then they're doing some austerity. That's just the nature of and everyone is offering something to someone higher. It can even be the ideal. You may have a dream, you may have a boss, you may have a family, you may, work for some political cause or social cause. And so these are universal elements of human life. So when Krishna says, I am the enjoyer of these things, in other words, your offering should be to me. And you have to do austerity. Even, for example, if you want to keep your health, you have to do austerity. You have to diet. Or you have to, most of us have to diet. Or you have to undergo some medical treatment to get your health back, or to help someone you care about. It's just, that's the nature of life itself. But Krishna says, I'm the enjoyer of all these things. So Bhoktarang Yagyatapasang Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, the great Lord of all the worlds. It's interesting because there are other Ishwaras, because, for example, if you're the mayor of your town, that's an Ishwara. So many people you may be the Ishwara of your family, or of your company, or of something, some project you have. So Krishna says, I'm the great Ishwara. Or sometimes it's called Ishwareshwara, Lord of Lords, which you probably know from Handel's Messiah, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, for he shall reign forever and ever. Anyone want to sing that here? No. So Krishna says, Bhoktarang Gyagyapat Sapasang Sarva Loka Maheshwaram Suhridang Sarva Bhutanam, and the well-wishing, as Prabhupada used to translate it, the well-wishing friend of all creatures. And the word for well-wisher literally means good-hearted, suhrit. And we have both those words in English. Actually, the word for heart is really pronounced hurt, like heart. I mean, obviously, it's a cognate word. Or hridaya, also heart. And then su, we have in English also. However, the Sanskrit went to, first it went to Persia, where the S was changed to an H, like Sindhu, Hindu. So it became Su became Hu, and then it kept going to Greece. And in Greece, an initial H in a word is silent. So it became EU, EU, like in euphemism, euphonics, eugenics, and so on. So the English prefix EU, which we pronounce euphonics, eugenics, whatever, is just Sanskrit Su coming through Persia and Greece. Interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
And so Suhrit, we have both of those in English. It's like, EU and then heart. So as I've often said, Sanskrit is actually all over the English language. It's everywhere. So anyway, so Krishna says, Gyatva, knowing that I am all these things, Mang Shanti Mrichiti, one achieves peace. So, and Prabhupada, it's interesting because when he went to New York in 1966, that's just when the anti-Vietnam War movement was just exploding. And so everywhere he looked, there were demonstrations for peace. So Prabhupada wrote a pamphlet called The Peace Formula. You all want peace. Well, here's how you can have peace. And it's interesting because there's a saying, honor among thieves. It's just like in the mafia, they have this code of honor, which is interesting. And one of the most famous rules is in Italian it's called omertà, which means it's like the code of silence. You never squeal, you never betray one of your mafia brothers, omertà. So, but it is, so this world, the so-called, virtue of this world is a bit like honor among thieves, because everyone is stealing from Krishna or trying to enjoy Krishna's property without acknowledging. Krishna obviously, he's not going to begrudge you an apple or a house or or some like a vehicle so you can get to work or something. We just have to acknowledge it. It's like if you have good parents, when they're raising you and they give you something, you're supposed to say thank you. And we know that kids that don't learn this turn out to be obnoxious little brats because they haven't learned to say thank you. I learned this when I was about 5 years old. I remember if I was 5 or 6, but I was very little, and therefore excusing myself. But it was my birthday party on Berryman Avenue in Los Angeles, my birthday party. And I was like really excited. When you're a little kid, like 5 or 6 years old, that's like the day. So everyone was in, people had arrived, and there was a doorbell rang. So I ran to the door. She was coming to my party, and it was my Aunt Beth, as we called her, Aunt Elizabeth. And so I opened the door and I just said, what did you get me? My mother pulled me aside. I never forgot that. She pulled me aside, and she's a very good mother, but she pulled me aside and taught me, you don't say that. I never forgot that. And so, but in a sense, that's what a lot of so-called religion is. Dear God, what did you get me? What are you going to give me? Please give me this or that. So it's just a lack of, how do you call it, culture, of just being a civilized person, that you go to God to thank God, not simply to ask for things. Yes, Durham.
We recently were discussing how they were given the choice of 3 births and how.
That's not in the Bhagavatam.
That's what I was wondering. It's not really been.
Yeah, for thousands of years, Vaishnavas have been kind of interpreting these stories or coming up with realizations or purports, or then there's one thing in terms of I don't know what you call it, the hermeneutics of Vaishnava theology, what we find is that when it comes to basic philosophy, they're very, very strict. Like you can't change the philosophy. But when it comes to Leela, there's a lot more flexibility. As long as there are boundaries, the boundaries are it has to be philosophically correct and it cannot be rasa bhasa in Vaikuntha Loka, Narayan is dancing with the wives of other great souls. I mean, that doesn't happen in Vishnu Loka. That's something that Krishna. So it can't be rasa bhasa, and it has to be philosophically correct. Otherwise, it's sort of like a free for all. Even in ISKCON, like devotees go to Vrindavan and they sit at the feet of some of the great storytellers. And does anyone? I'm probably the only person ever asked, like, oh, really? Where did that come from? In fact, one time, a well-known ISKCON sannyasi, nice person, I was in Vrindavan, so he gave me a tour around Govardhan, and he was sort of like, he'd done that a lot. He was like the resident expert on Govardhan Leela. So we were walking around Govardhan, and it's like every 10 steps, yeah, this is Krishna met the gopis here, and this is where this happened and that happened. So at one point I said, how do we know all this? Where does this all come from? And he stopped and said, I don't know. No one ever asked me. That was the first person that actually asked where it comes from. So it's not that it's evil or something, but there is, and even you find the acharyas, for example, Jiva Goswami in his book Gopala Champu. It's a very big book about Krishna Leela and very sophisticated. That Champu, not to be confused with the English word, it's a genre, it's a type of Sanskrit literature where you combine both sort of metered verse and free form. I mean, literarily, it's very sophisticated. But anyway, in this book, the book ends last many chapters with this super wedding of Radha and Krishna, because Jiva Goswami was the defender of Sukhiya Rasa, the idea that ultimately the relationship between Radha and Krishna is like husband and wife. And most of the other acharyas disagree and say, no, it's parakiya. Swa means one's own, like one's own woman or wife. And para means someone else's wife. So parakiya rasa. So that's an example of the acharyas disagreeing on that. Or, for example, I think it's Sanatana Goswami, where in the Bhagavatam, of course, the 10th canto tells about Krishna killing the Keshi demon. And then Sanatana says, well, actually, what really happened is. And so there's this, it's interesting because if someone stays within the boundaries of philosophy and rasa, then they sort of have their visions of what happened of Krishna Leela. But when it comes to philosophy, there's absolutely no tolerance for bad philosophy or for changing the philosophy. In fact, Prabhupada, toward the end of his stay here, he mentioned that he was interested in having his disciples translate the verses. He wanted to do the purport. That's what he really was concerned about, the purports.
It could be the rasas are the different interpretation of visions is because Krishna manifests to them differently. Krishna can manifest for you a type of thing and for somebody else something else. Could it be?
I mean, it's true that, we could call it realization, or if it's a real realization, you could say, well, that's what Krishna inspired in me. Yes.
So just like you was describing that when you went around Govardhan Hill, you were the first one to ask. So it's kind of like that because I've heard a lot of people in like 50 years talk about Krishna consciousness. So one devotee said to me that in the material manifestation of Krishna's pastime, the gopis have what appears, a physical form that there's their husband and that they left their husband. But they said that in the spiritual world, there is the concept
Yes.
of the gopis thinking that they're married, but there actually is no husband.
Yeah, I've heard that also.
Is that correct?
Well, we have to trace that. It's like in the material world, there's a certain sort of, in the material world, illicit excitement in adultery. And Prabhupada used to say that whatever is lowest in this world is highest in the spiritual world, because this world is an upside down reflection. So, any other point? Yes.
You mentioned the word supreme personality when referring to Krishna, and you made me think of the expression supreme personality as Godhead, God of coin. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to the user friendly or user unfriendliness of that term. And as apprentices, you probably know, in France, when Jyotirmayi, your god sister, was translating the book, she wrote a letter to Prabhupada asking if the term Krishna, God, the Supreme Person, in French could be used, and Prabhupada said basically yes, and that's what they've been using.
Yeah, because in French and Spanish and Portuguese, there is no word for Godhead.
So I was wondering, what Supreme Personality of God, how user friendly is that for a common person in America, for example? Like, is that, what do you think?
Well, as far as user friendliness, Prabhupada's books, especially I'd say the Bhagavatam, which Prabhupada correctly calls like the postgraduate study. The Bhagavatam is just being objective here, almost academic. Theologically, it's very sophisticated. It's a very sophisticated work. It's very advanced theology. And of course, there's just some good old-fashioned religion in it also, like love God and all that, and be a good person. But the Bhagavatam, like if you look at the first 3 verses, you really have to be a theologian to read that and understand what's really being said. So, which brings up the point that Prabhupada is a founder, Acharya of ISKCON, and because he's the only one qualified to be that. And so we're trying to bring people to Krishna. And of course, our understanding is that if we want to bring people to Krishna in the most effective and meaningful way, we should bring them to Prabhupada. And so then the question should be asked, it's not generally, but it should be asked, what is the most efficient way to bring people to the shelter of Prabhupada? And so if we give people books that it's, most of them, very high percentage of them, will not actually be able to read and understand. Anyway, I think, of course, if you say this, you're liable to have your head cut off. But I think someone has to say it. That, again, the goal is to bring people to Prabhupada. So how do you efficiently do that? Do we need to build bridges to Prabhupada? It's interesting because if you open a yoga school as a bridge program, which often tends to be what I call foot of the bridge program, because, it's like, why did the chicken cross the road? Why did the chicken cross the bridge? To get to the other side. So bridges are only efficient if someone actually wants to go to the other side of the bridge. It's not that you take people to the foot of a bridge and then they just sort of unconsciously drift across the bridge. And so I want to develop this point. So so then I think in my view, as revolutionary as this may sound, I believe we actually have to think. And there's a strong tendency, I believe, to what I call bhakti mimamsa. Karma mimamsa means that, which was the view of a certain school of thought in India, which was very influential actually for centuries. I mean, a long time ago. Karma mimamsa means that first of all, karma mimamsa people, they wanted to go to heaven, swarga kamo yajeta. That was their motto. Like, if you want to go to heaven, material heaven, yajeta, you have to offer sacrifice. And it's just mechanical. It's interesting because they categorized everything in karma mimamsa philosophy. When I was at Harvard, I actually had a course in karma mimamsa. We read a karma mimamsa book in Sanskrit. And so they were the great categorizers, the great classifiers. And so deities like God or the demigods are in the same category as things like the leaves you put down in the sacrificial arena, or just leaf cups. That is, because in India they make, at least I don't know if they still do it now. It's probably they've advanced to plastic, but they take these leaves and just make cups. And so that's one category of paraphernalia. So the gods are in the same category as leaf cups. They're just paraphernalia. And the gods have no discretion. It's not about pleasing the gods. You just say this mantra to a god and say the mantra right. It's like if you go to get a driver's license, you don't have to propitiate the clerk behind the counter. If you pass the test, and if you pass the eye test, if you pass the driving test, if you're a certain age and you've got the money, the clerk has to give you the driver's license. So in this view, karma mimamsa, the gods are just clerks. If you did all the sacrifices and chanted the mantras, they just have to give you your ticket to a higher planet. They have no discretionary power. They're just bureaucrats. And so there's a tendency to mechanize everything, because the way we get control of things in this world is that we mechanize it. You break it down. If I can figure out how this works, and if I can duplicate that, then I can control it. That's what control is. You figure out how something works, you get power over it. And so there's a strong tendency, in my view, which is just human nature, to mechanize bhakti yoga, to reduce bhakti yoga down to just, a process. Like, if you put some water on the stove and turn the heat on and put it at the right temperature, in about, let's say, 5 minutes, the water is going to boil. And so if you just get up early in the morning, or you chant or do this or that, or you just sell Prabhupada's books, it's just, you get liberation, you make spiritual advancement because you mastered the process. And so it's sort of like this mechanical thing that if people buy a book, then they make spiritual advancement. If people hear the Harinam, they make advancement. It's absolutely not necessary that they have any consciousness of what's happening, or that they agree to it. In other words, there's no free will involved. It's like, let's say a parent takes their child for a necessary surgical procedure, and then they put the child out, the child's asleep, and just the child has no discretionary power. Something is done to the child for their benefit. And so it seems to me there's this very strong belief that the way we save, especially the Western world, in India, people know about these things. You actually have to talk to them because, they know what the Bhagavad Gita is. They know this and that. So you really have to have a conversation. But in the West, since most people don't really know what this is, it's not interactive. It's not like the Bhagavad Gita. It's not a dialogue. You do something to somebody. you perform this procedure on them by getting them to eat prasadam, buy a book, or you just do Harinam in a way they literally can't walk down the street without hearing it. And so it's not persuasion, it's just doing something to somebody. And they can be, and the fact that they're unconscious of what they're doing, like you can tell them, the book is this, the book is that, because ultimately what they think is irrelevant. The power is all in the hands of the devotee. If the devotee can, and sometimes it is, not all the times, there are many great souls that are selling books, but many times it's a type of manipulation. And so it's like bhakti mimamsa. That was my point. Because it's just a mechanical procedure that does not require the awareness or the consent of the person who is being manipulated for their own benefit. And I believe that taking this too far is disastrous, because ISKCON, rather than really develop and refine the art of persuasion, rather than devotees, let's say, like, and of course now with the BI, it's getting better, but rather than learning, for example, philosophy and learning how to persuade or learning just how to deal with people, you just have to learn how to manipulate them. You just have to get them to buy something. You have to get them to touch something, to eat something. You have to somehow place yourself on the street or some public place where they literally cannot get to where they're going without hearing what you want them to hear. And so it's not persuasion, as in Bhagavad Gita, it's manipulation. And the person being manipulated, it makes no difference whether they even are conscious of what's happening. That's irrelevant. So my conclusion is, and also, I've said this so many times, based on what Krishna says in the Gita. By the way, I'm paraphrasing exactly what Krishna says in the Gita. I don't see any serious possibility of the Hare Krishna movement being successful, especially in the Western world or other worlds, by this strategy of manipulation. Benign, with the best intention and for the best purpose, but manipulation nonetheless. And of course, this idea that we can manipulate the world into its own salvation is based on a type of bhakti mimamsa, because it is mechanical. If you light a fire and put the fire to some combustible thing, the fire will catch. There's no question of intention, volition, free will. It's a mechanical thing. It's a process. It doesn't require any awareness. Like if you say put fire to a piece of paper, it's not that the paper has to be conscious and know that it's being burned. That's like completely irrelevant. So, in my own humble way, trying to explain it. So anyway, I'll stop there. Yes. Oh, there's a question. Always is every day we get the same people asking questions. Chaitanya Leela scriptures, devotees who have two forms. I've heard that also. How do we understand that? I don't know. If you figured it out, let me know. It's this, of course, is not in the Chaitanya Charitamrita thing. It's in another book. But how two souls can be in one body, it's to this day. I haven't heard an explanation that helped me to understand it. I'm not saying it's not true. I've just never heard an explanation that. Actually, I've just never heard an explanation. It's not that I haven't heard a good explanation. I just haven't heard an explanation.
So, because I like your answer that you just gave. So, but when I asked you a question the other day, you gave me a very intelligent answer. but I was still very curious because I'd heard in ISKCON. So I asked some friends, and one of them said to me, go read the 86th chapter of the Krishna book. In there it describes that, doesn't specifically say, but I see how devotees interpret it that way. That it says that when Krishna entered the city of Mithila, he was requested by both Bhavilashva and
Right.
by Shrutadev to come to their house.
Well, Krishna can do that. Krishna
And
can
it
do
says
that.
that, but I'm just saying what Prabhupada's words
Right.
were. That Prabhupada describes who the personalities were that were with Krishna,
Okay.
and then it describes, so it doesn't say it specifically, but I can see how devotees can interpret it that way. It says that Krishna expanded himself, Vilas Prakash, right?
Right.
He expanded himself along with his associates. But doesn't
Yeah, but-
specifically say that the associates,
Okay. If I,
so,
yeah, we need, anyway, maybe we can look at it, see what the Sanskrit actually says.
right.
But,
That's what they told me to do.
Yeah. Okay. Any other points?
Thank you, Maharaj.
Sure.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Question. But it's not out of my mind.
Oh, well, people that are hungry will be glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
I had one. And then, yeah, exactly.
So Dharma Fair. Nice you're back.